What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio Robinson back with the latest and greatest from the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. We've made another coaching hire, one that may surprise some and one that may discuss some. We saw me and my reaction to Brian Johnson getting an interview for our offensive coordinator position, but I feel indifferent to this one. I am totally fine with former Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson being hired for an offensive position here, a prominent offensive role, according to sources here in Washington, D.C. Johnson was a hot name after the Eagles moved on from him. He met with the Browns, Bucks, Saints, along with talks with several other teams. He lands on Dan Quinn's staff. This is a guy who got 2 head coaching interviews this offseason, Atlanta and Tennessee. 2 head coaching interviews, a whole bunch of offensive coordinator interviews. I had no interest in him calling plays, but him on the staff to help develop a quarterback, be the quarterback's coach or some type of position coach or assistant, I'm here for. He has a long track record of working with quarterbacks. He worked with Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. He worked well with Jalen Hurts, a guy who's known his entire life until he was tasked with calling plays for it. Like I told you in my other video, when it came to calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, Brian Johnson was handed a high-end sports car and had it running like a jalopy by end of season. So as far as calling plays, absolutely fucking not. But he has a lot of experience. He was a quarterback's coach for Utah. He was an offensive coordinator and quarterback's coach for Utah. He was a quarterback's coach for Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. He was an offensive coordinator, quarterback's coach for Houston. He was a quarterback coach for Florida. 2 years as a quarterback coach in Philadelphia, where they developed Jalen Hurts from a guy who could not throw the ball to an MVP candidate. And then he had his one crack at being the primary play caller, offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that did not necessarily work out. He had an offense that was stagnant and was predictable, and the identity of his entire system became a glorified quarterback sneak and the tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call that one play that always works. Your banger cannot be a 1-yard quarterback sneak. The receivers clearly are vindicated that Brian Johnson moved on as a play caller. But I don't think anyone's doubting Brian Johnson's ability to help develop a quarterback or be a quarterback's coach or some type of position coach, but anything that's not a play calling responsibility. Clearly, he's still a highly coveted offensive assistant because he's still getting hella interviews and teams want him to have work. Teams have more interest in Brian Johnson than they do EB. I call Brian Johnson 36-year-old Eric Bieniemy. But being 36, he has more upside. So he has time to grow and evolve as a coach. EB is who he is. EB is 55 years old. The philosophies that you've implemented at that age, they're not changing. You're not evolving. You are who you are at that point. Brian Johnson has the upside as a position coach, as a low-key coordinator. He could be something like a passing game coach. We don't know what the title of his position here is here yet in DC, but welcome to the staff. Let's build us a unit. Let's build us an offensive unit that's ready to develop a young quarterback, because we got one coming here, whether that's going to be Drake May, Jaden Daniels, or somehow by the gifts or hands of God, Caleb Williams. But we got to develop a young quarterback. That is going to be the number one topic, the number 1, 2, and 3 topic going into the season after the draft concludes in April. Who is the quarterback? What's the plan for the quarterback? And who are the people that are here in place to develop said quarterback? So I'm not going to doubt the NFL's heralding of Brian Johnson as a quarterback developer, because Jalen Hurts looked like Justin Fields 2 years ago. And then last year, 2022 season, Jalen Hurts looked like a goddamn MVP candidate. He went toe-to-toe and outplayed Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He outplayed the most talented quarterback in the history of the league in the Super Bowl. This year took a step back, but the numbers aren't terrible. But he definitely took a step back. I told you in another video, Jalen Hurts was looking like Sam Howell at some points of these seasons. So that offense took a big step back under Brian Johnson. Some guys like Dan Quinn, need to let the main thing be the main thing. Like Cliff Kingsbury, I think he'll be better set up to be a coordinator than a head coach. Not everybody's meant to be in charge. Not everybody's meant for a supervisory role. Some people are better employees than they are bosses. Brian Johnson's job is the relationship with a quarterback. It's not calling the plays and developing a game plan to counterpunch opponents on Sunday. And I'm cool with that. I'm here with that. We're putting together a full staff of vindication, a full staff of redemption arcs, and people trying to clear their good name here in DC. And Brian Johnson adds to the list of Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury of guys trying to do better given a second opportunity. Welcome to the staff. The next question is, who will the remaining staff be and who will Washington have in mind? I imagine when they do these interviews for these position coaches, they're talking to them, they're chopping it up. What interests you in a quarterback? What type of quarterback do you prefer working with? We know you had time working with Dak Prescott and you had time working with Jalen Hurts. Which style appeases you more? What is your coaching style? How do you resonate with young quarterbacks? What type of language do you speak to them? These are like Josh Harris and Adam Peters and the way we've conducted interviews. I'm not going to doubt anybody they bring on staff because the process is as thorough as I've seen it here in quite some time. No, it's as thorough as I've ever seen it here in DC because we usually have names circled and we just go there. Circle these names. They're the target. Boom. Let's pretend a couple interviews and then let's hire them. But that's not the way that we move now here in DC. We move a little bit different now. So if Brian Johnson got this job, it's because Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury think he is fully capable of coming in and assisting with the process of developing a young quarterback. And to that, I say, let's roll. Brian Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, keep the ball rolling. Dallas blocked us from interviewing their tight end coach, Lunda Wells, and their DB coach, Al Harris. The Al Harris one stings because I wanted us a dog on the coaching staff. I needed that Chris Harris Jr. energy brought back to the DB room, but it's all good. I'm sure we're still going to get a guy. I think Mike Adams and Jason Simmons are perfectly qualified for the position as well. But Dallas told us, y'all got a little bit too much dip on your chip, and y'all need to go look elsewhere because y'all are no longer outsourcing from the Dallas Cowboys Department of Defense. But Brian Johnson, new question mark position here in DC. It'll probably be quarterbacks coach or some type of passing game coordinator or something of the sort, but we will find out that soon. Check me out tonight on Louis T's channel. We're doing a 4 horseman stream. Louis T, Rico from Street Scores, Ed Oliver, and your boy will be on there talking about the rebirth of Washington Commanders football. That's all I got for right now. Stop the presses. Washington has hired another coach. They're getting busy on a Thursday afternoon. They just announced the hiring of Brian Johnson to be some sort of offensive assistant here in DC. We've made our defensive backs coach hiring. Dallas would not let us speak to Al Harris, so we went with the first guy we interviewed. That will be Jason Simmons of the Las Vegas Raiders. Jeremy Fowler says he's helped develop young corners Jair Alexander, Dante Jackson, and Jack Jones over the years. Raiders ranked 9th in scoring defense last year. During his time in Carolina, they were a top 3 defense while he was there. A lot of that because of the secondary. We added another young, hungry offensive guy to the staff, a guy that was coveted league-wide, and a guy who's on the track to be a defensive coordinator in this league. I'm excited. Give me all the help for Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, and our secondary because I need someone who's going to tap into Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin, Benjamin St. Juste, and any other cornerbacks we add to the mix here. I need someone to tap into it. So welcome to the staff, Jason Simmons. We now have a coaching staff that consists of Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Witt Jr., Jason Simmons as the passing game coordinator, secondaries coach, and Brian Johnson, undisclosed and unidentified offensive assistant here in DC. One of the selling points on Dan Quinn as the head coach here in Washington was that he could put together a top tier staff. He could pull rank and pull connections to guys far and wide throughout the NFL. And so far, he looks every bit as advertised, as our staff is rounding out to look pretty good so far. Let's see how the rest pans out. But Washington is getting busy. Hired an offensive coach and a defensive coach today. I'm excited. Every time news comes out, I'm here to update you. We got us a defensive passing game coordinator and a secondaries coach. Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin hit his line. Joe Witt Jr. hit his line, and let's get to work, because I need our last year's reclamation project draft class to turn out to be something promising. And it looks like we got the right guys here to help them ascend into actually quality players. But that's all I got, though. Hail to the Washington Commanders. We're going to see how the rest of this staff play out. Deuces.